In this section of the course, we'll be covering automation and orchestration. Automation refers to the process of automatically executing tasks without manual intervention, typically achieved using specialized software or scripts. Now, it allows for repetitive tasks to be performed consistently and efficiently while reducing the chances of human error and freeing up time for more complex tasks. On the other hand, orchestration is the coordinated and sequenced execution of multiple automated tasks to achieve a specific outcome or workflow. Now, this involves the organization directing various automated processes work together harmoniously while ensuring that tasks are executed in the right order and that dependencies between them are managed appropriately. Basically, automation focuses on making individual tasks autonomous, while orchestration looks at the bigger picture to ensure that all automated tasks come together seamlessly to achieve a broader goal. In recent years, the use of SOAR has become very popular. Now, when I talk about SOAR, I'm not talking about soaring like a bird. I'm talking about the SOAR for the acronym Security, Orchestration, Automation, and Response, which is a class of security tools that help facilitate incident response, threat hunting, and security configurations by orchestrating and automating runbooks and delivering data enrichment. Basically, think of this as a SIEM version 2.0. Now, when you're dealing with SOAR is primarily used for incident response, but there's a large part of it used for threat hunting as well. But really, the number one place you're going to see SOAR used is incident response because you can automate so many of your actions. Now, as I said, I like to think about it as SIEM 2.0. Essentially, it's a next generation SIEM since it takes security information and event monitoring systems and integrates it into SOAR. And when you put those two together, it really does become your next generation SIEM, just like when you deal with the next generation firewall. They took it from dealing with layer 3 and layer 4 and brought it all the way up to 7 layers. It made it just so much better and so much more capable. Well, the same thing's happening here when you integrate SOAR with your SIEM. You basically get an awesome product. It's going to give you the ability to scan security and threat data to be able to identify different things. You can then analyze it using machine learning, and then you can also automate the process of doing data enrichment to make sure that data inside SIEM is even more powerful for your analysts to use. And you can do instant response so you can provision new resources. That means you can create new accounts, you can create new VMs, and if you're using VDI, you can actually delete someone's infected box and then create a new virtual machine for them to use. And all of this can be done using automated playbooks if you want to use this SOAR capability. Now, when we talk about this, I just mentioned the word playbook. What exactly is that? Well, a playbook is essentially a checklist of actions that you're going to perform to detect and respond to a specific type of incident. So if you said, hey, look, I have an alert that says there's some phishing campaign and someone clicked on a link on this machine. Well, we're going to do steps 1 through 10, and then we're going to re-image the machine and we're going to give them a new computer. That might be your steps. So, for example, if you have somebody who clicked on a link in a phishing campaign, you might have steps 1 through 5, which says go to the machine, isolate it from the network, do a virus scan to make sure they haven't infected themselves or anyone else, check the registry to make sure there's nothing in there for persistence, and then back up all the user data. Refill them with a new computer, and then reinstall the image and put the data back on it. This is just an example of some of the actions that you might do. Now, these could be manual or automated, but in the case of a playbook, you're usually just talking about the steps that are involved. Now, if I can automate a lot of that, that has become a runbook. Now, a runbook is an automated version of a playbook, and it leaves clearly defined interaction points for human analysis. For example, my SOAR might say, if someone clicks the link in a phishing email, do these steps 1 through 5. When you get to step 2, pause, send it to the analyst who will then say, re-image the machine or don't re-image the machine. These are the ways that we can use these things, and they all work together to create a better environment and to help reduce the workload of our analysts because, again, we only have so many cybersecurity professionals, and if we have them all wasting their time on very minor things that could be automated, that's not very helpful to us. So instead, we want to make sure that we automate what we can, and SOAR allows us to do a lot of that automation. So in this section of the course, we're going to just focus on automation and orchestration by singularly focusing on domain 4 and objective 4.7. Objective 4.7 states that you must be able to explain the importance of automation and orchestration related to secure operations. First, we will discuss when to automate and when to orchestrate. Here, we will learn to consider the complexity, cost, amount of single points of failures involved, and technical debt, ongoing supportability, whether the thing that you're considering is a repeatable process that doesn't frequently change, and things like that when determining if we should automate or orchestrate a particular process in our organization. Next, we will look at the benefits of automation and orchestration. Some of these benefits include things like becoming more efficient and saving time by enforcing baselines, standardizing your infrastructure configuration, scaling in a more secure manner, better employee retention, faster reaction times, and using automation and orchestration as a workforce multiplier. Then we will discuss how you can automate support tickets. This can be done to create the tickets, perform minor actions on the tickets, and to escalate the tickets when required. After that, we will look at automating your organization's onboarding process. Whenever you hire a new employee, there are several functions that need to be performed, including provisioning the user's account, provisioning new resources for the user, and numerous processes, and most of these things can be automated or orchestrated within your organization. Next, we'll explore how you can automate security in your organization. For example, you can set up guardrails, security groups, enable or disable services and access, then also modify the user's permissions, all by using automation and orchestration techniques. Then we will review methods to automate your application's development within your organization. Here, we'll be focused on the continuous integration and continuous deployment process known as CI/CD. After that, we will look at different integrations and APIs that we can use to automate workflows across multiple systems and even across numerous software as a service products. And finally, we will take a short quiz to see what you learned during this section of the course and review each one of those quiz questions to fully ensure that you can explain why each answer was right. So let's dive into the world of automation and orchestration in this section of the course. In this lesson, we will cover when to automate and orchestrate. Now, let's delve into the critical topic of automation or orchestration and their significance in the realm of secure operations. This lesson is designed to align with Objective 4.7, the Security Plus SY0-701 certification exam, where we will specifically focus on the other considerations as a sub-bullet. By the end of this lesson, you will have a deep understanding of when, why, and how to implement automation and orchestration effectively, taking into account various factors that influence decision-making in this domain. Automation and orchestration are indispensable tools in our modern information technology and cybersecurity enterprise environment. Automation and orchestration offers us the potential to streamline complex processes, enhance our security measures, and significantly improve our operational efficiency. However, their effective deployment does require that you consider several factors before implementing automation and orchestration in your organization, including the complexity, the cost, any single points of failure, the concept of technical debt, and your ability to conduct ongoing supportability of your automation and orchestration processes. First, we must consider the complexity of any potential automation and orchestration projects. You will find that automation and orchestration technologies work best when they are applied to repetitive tasks that are somewhat complex, since this makes a positive return on investment more likely than automating a simplistic process. So our first step in determining if we should automate or orchestrate a given process is to consider how complex that process actually is and if it warrants the time, money, and resources required to be automated or orchestrated. For example, if you want to conduct a routine backup of your server's storage every evening, this would be a good use for setting up automation, but it is not complex enough to require the use of orchestration. On the other hand, if you want to create a runbook that can conduct an incident response on a given workstation when it is identified as being infected with malware, you would want to use orchestration since this involves numerous complex tasks like logically isolating the infected machine from the network, imaging the workstation storage drive, submitting that drive image for analysis to the forensics team, formatting the workstation, installing a known good operating system image on the workstation, scanning the workstation to validate that it's no longer infected, and returning the workstation to the network. Now, this can all be conducted using an orchestration process that launches multiple different automation processes to complete all of these required tasks. Second, we need to consider the cost of implementing automation and orchestration. Cost is usually going to be a key factor in your decision-making process as to whether or not you will use automation and orchestration. While these technologies promise substantial long-term cost savings due to their increased efficiency, they often entail a large upfront or initial investment to create them in terms of hiring a service provider to create them or to pay a team of developers to implement them. Therefore, you should conduct a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis to weigh the expenses associated with the development, implementation, and maintenance of your proposed automation and orchestration solutions against the expected benefits and long-term savings. You should also make sure that you are considering all of the costs, including any hardware, software, personnel, and ongoing support costs that will be associated with the automation or orchestration. For example, at Dion Training, when we initially began selling discounted exam vouchers to our students, we started this program using manual labor where a real human would receive the exam voucher order from one of our students, and then they would then assign an exam voucher to the student and email that voucher code to that student to fulfill the order. This worked well when we started the program because we only sold a few vouchers per week. But as our program became very popular, we quickly found that it was both cheaper and more efficient to fully automate the voucher fulfillment process, even though it wasn't an inexpensive thing to do. In our case, we began automating this process a few years ago using some simple automation that cost us a few $1,000s. Over time, as we continued to increase the number of vouchers we sold, we upgraded our system to a fully orchestrated system that is still in use today. But since we considered the cost, we began with a manual labor process and then implemented an automated process to lower the cost until it made financial sense to move to a more expensive and fully orchestrated solution. Third, you need to consider any single points of failure that may exist as you begin to implement automation or orchestrations in your organization's network. For example, many organizations forget to build backup systems or manual processes that can be used if automation or orchestration systems fail. This lack of foresight will create a single point of failure in your organization's network since everything relies on your automation and orchestration. If your automations and orchestrations are not appropriately designed and maintained, these systems can disrupt essential business processes if they encounter an issue. For example, even though we use our fully orchestrated voucher fulfillment system at Dion Training, we still have a manual process that we can use if our orchestration fails for any reason. This helps to mitigate the risk of a single point of failure by implementing redundancy and failover mechanisms, both technical ones and manual ones. Redundancy might entail backup servers or failover systems that ensure uninterrupted operations even if one component fails, or it could involve having a manual labor process that can be implemented if the automation or orchestration has failed. Fourth, we must consider the technical debt created by our automation and orchestration systems. Just like any other technology, our automation and orchestration systems can accumulate technical debt if not adequately maintained or if they become outdated. Technical debt refers to the accumulated cost and complexity of suboptimal or hastily implemented software solutions that need to be addressed or refactored in the future. This technical debt can impede efficiency and security. So, to mitigate the risk of technical debt, it is important that you conduct regular reviews and updates of your automation and orchestration systems. This ongoing maintenance helps to ensure that these systems remain aligned with your organization's evolving needs and technology landscape. For example, here at Dion Training, we had accumulated quite a bit of technical debt with our first voucher fulfillment automation system. So, as we moved to fully orchestrate the process, we had to spend a lot of time refactoring our existing code base before we could move forward with our orchestration project, which cost us a few weeks of effort and the associated labor costs that went along with the code refactoring process. Fifth, we need to consider the ongoing supportability of our automations and orchestrations. Long-term supportability is a vital factor to consider because as technologies evolve, our automation and orchestration processes must also be modified and adapted to meet this changing technology. As you invest in automation and orchestration solutions, ensure that your team possesses the necessary skills to maintain and adapt to these systems over time. Training and skill development are essential components of ensuring ongoing supportability. I have seen many organizations who outsource the one-time development for their automations or orchestrations, and then they're surprised when their systems stop working after a few weeks, few months, or even a few years. This is because most automations rely on the interconnection of various systems through the use of APIs and webhooks. But if any of these various systems are updated, upgraded, or replaced, it can break all your automations. For example, at Dion Training, we have an automation that is used to pull any questions posted by our students about 4 times per day, and then we create trouble tickets in our own support system for our student support analysts to respond to these questions. If Udemy, one of our partners, updates their systems, this will sometimes break our automation process because they change the way that they receive questions from students and how they notify us of new questions being posted. So our development team has to update our automations to ensure that they are always working properly and are supported over time as other systems are changed and updated. So when should you automate or orchestrate a given process? Well, I found that the most effective use of automation and orchestration is for tasks and workflows that are both repeatable and stable. You should first try to identify any processes within your organization that remain consistent over time. These processes are one of the ones that are prime candidates for automation and orchestration, as they can yield significant time and resource savings since they're repeatable and fairly consistent. If you have a task that is considered a one-off task, a highly variable or frequently changing task, then it's probably not a suitable candidate for automation or orchestration. For example, if you need to migrate 10 user accounts from one learning management system to another, it might take you 4 or 5 hours to code an automation to perform that migration. Or you can spend 30 minutes manually copying and pasting information from one system to another. If this is a task that you perform every day, then it would definitely make sense to automate this process for the cost of 4 or 5 hours one time. And now that process that occurs daily can only take 1 or 2 minutes each time. Alternatively, is this a one-time task or a task that may be performed once every few years, then it doesn't make sense to spend the 4 or 5 hours to automate this task. And instead, you should spend the 30 minutes every few years to manually migrate those 10 user accounts. So remember, automation and orchestration offer immense potential to optimize secure operations, but their implementation should be guided by a strategic approach. By meticulously assessing the complexity of tasks, weighing the associated costs, mitigating single points of failure, managing technical debt, ensuring ongoing supportability, and focusing on automating or orchestrating stable, repeatable processes, organizations can harness the full power of these technologies. The decision to automate or orchestrate processes should be informed by the specific needs, resources, and circumstances of each organization. Additionally, it is important that you conduct continuous monitoring and adaptation of automation and orchestration systems to ensure that they remain effective and in alignment with your organization's goals. In this lesson, we will explore the numerous benefits of automation and orchestration. Automation and orchestration are powerful tools that can revolutionize the efficiency, security, and overall effectiveness of your organization's operations. There are 7 main benefits of using automation and orchestration: increased efficiency and time savings, enforcing baselines, implementing standard infrastructure configurations, scaling in a more secure manner, increased employee retention, faster reaction times, and being a workforce multiplier. Now, let's take a look at each of these benefits. First, we have increased efficiency and time savings. One of the most evident advantages of automation and orchestration is a significant reduction in manual tasks, and this translates into more time being saved for your employees. Repetitive and time-consuming processes, such as system patching, software deployment, and data backups, can be automated to run seamlessly without any human intervention. By using automation and orchestration, you can free up valuable human resources as well as reducing the risk of human errors. This helps to ensure that we have a more reliable and consistent outcome in our processes by relying on automation and orchestration instead of using our legacy manual processes. Second, we have the enforcement of baselines. Automation and orchestration enable our organizations to enforce security and compliance baselines consistently across their entire enterprise network and infrastructure. By defining standardized configurations and policies, automation and orchestration tools can ensure that systems are always aligned with our industry's best practices and any other pertinent regulatory requirements. This approach minimizes vulnerabilities and reduces the likelihood of a security breach occurring. Third, we have the implementation of standard infrastructure configurations. Maintaining a standardized infrastructure configuration is essential for security and operational stability. Automation and orchestration help to facilitate the creation and enforcement of standard configurations to ensure that all of your systems are set up consistently. If any deviation from the established standards are detected, orchestrations can be utilized to trigger automated corrective actions to further enhance the security and reliability of your infrastructure. Fourth, we can utilize scaling in a more secure manner. As organizations grow and expand, they often encounter challenges related to scaling their IT infrastructure securely. Automation and orchestration provide the means to scale resources up or down dynamically while adhering to security protocols. Whether it's provisioning new virtual machines, adding network resources, or adjusting access controls, these tools ensure that scalability is achieved without compromising security. For example, when using the cloud and the scalability and elasticity, we must rely on automation and orchestration to perform most of our scaling operations in a secure manner, since a human cannot deploy new virtual servers as quickly or securely as an automation or orchestration could. Fifth, we have increased employee retention. Now, this is a less obvious benefit of automation and orchestration, since most of us think of automation and orchestration as something that will replace our human employees, and this is one of the reasons some employees fight against automation and orchestration. But automation and orchestration actually has been proven to have a positive impact on your employees' overall satisfaction and retention levels. By automating repetitive and mundane tasks, organizations empower their employees to focus on more strategic and creative aspects of their roles, which leads to more job fulfillment. This makes the work more engaging and also reduces the risk of burnout, which is a large factor that contributes to higher employee retention rates. Yes, automation and orchestration can replace some of our workforce, but those that remain are happier since they're doing the work that really matters instead of completing menial and boring tasks that should have simply been automated away. Sixth, we have decreased reaction times by using automation and orchestration. In the ever-evolving landscape of cybersecurity threats, it is important that you can react to incidents rapidly. Automation and orchestration enables organizations to respond more quickly to security incidents and anomalies, since these systems are never distracted, tired, or on vacation. Intrusion detection, threat analysis, and incident response can be all automated to provide real-time alerts to execute predefined response actions using either a simple automation or a more complex orchestration process. When it comes to these faster reaction times, they can really become the difference between mitigating a threat and suffering a significant data breach, because detection and response times are always a major factor in how severe a security breach will become. 7. We have the benefit of being a workforce multiplier. Automation and orchestration act as a workforce multiplier by augmenting the capabilities of your existing staff. With these tools in place, a smaller team can manage and secure a larger and more complex infrastructure. This not only reduces the need for extensive staffing, but also optimizes resource allocation that can lead to cost savings. In most organizations, our workforce and labor costs are the single largest expense that we have. So anytime our organizations can replace a human with an automation or orchestration that can produce the same or higher level of quality, this will save us time and money in the long run. Over time, the cost of using automation usually goes down, but over that same period of time, the cost to conduct a manual process will increase as labor rates tend to go up over time. Now, I know this is something that worries a lot of people because they are afraid that their job will be replaced with an automation, orchestration, or robotic process, but these type of technological changes to our everyday work have been happening repeatedly throughout history and will continue to occur. So instead of fighting automations and orchestrations, you're better off embracing them and learning how to become an automation, orchestration, or robotic process engineer to take advantage of this strategic shift in the way we work in our modern society. Now, let's take a quick look at the benefits of automation and orchestration in action during an incident response in a fictitious financial organization. This institution just detected that a cybersecurity incident may have occurred in which multiple accounts were compromised simultaneously. Without automation and orchestration, the incident response team would need to manually investigate each compromised account, identify the root cause, and then apply corrective measures. However, with automation and orchestration in place, the incident response process becomes streamlined. Automated tools continuously monitor network traffic and user activity to flag suspicious behavior. When an incident is detected, orchestration can then take over in order to isolate the affected accounts, collect forensic data from the victimized systems, and initiate a predefined incident response playbook. As a result, the organization's overall reaction time is drastically reduced. Instead of hours or days of manual investigation and response, the organization can contain the incident within just a few minutes. This not only prevents further damage, but also minimizes the impact on affected customers and the organization's reputation. So remember, when it comes to the benefits of automation and orchestration, remember that they can both bring about transformative advantages that go well beyond just giving you increased levels of efficiency. These tools empower your organization to enforce standards, scale securely, retain talent, react swiftly to threats, and multiply the capabilities of your current workforce. As cybersecurity continues to evolve, automation and orchestration will play an increasingly vital role in ensuring the resilience and success of organizations in the digital age by empowering your organization to thrive in a rapidly changing landscape where speed, efficiency, and security are paramount. In this lesson, we will discuss automating support tickets. Automating support ticket management can significantly enhance the efficiency of IT and customer support teams by streamlining issue resolution and improve overall customer satisfaction. Support ticket management is a critical function for our customer support team. These teams are responsible for addressing various issues, incidents, and service requests that are submitted by users or customers. In many organizations, the volume of support tickets can be really overwhelming, which in turn can lead to delays in issue resolution, increased workloads for your staff, and decreased customer satisfaction scores. Automating support ticket management helps to address these challenges by introducing efficiency, consistency, and scalability into your support process. When we talk about automation, remember that we're referring to the process of using technology and machinery to perform tasks or processes with minimal human intervention. So when it comes to automating trouble tickets, the two key aspects that we attempt to automate are the ticket creation and the ticket escalation process for our support team. Now, let's cover the ticket creation process first. Automating ticket creation is the first step in streamlining support ticket management. This process involves the automatic generation of tickets when users or customers report issues or requests. Basically, the ticket creation process moves through 6 steps. First, the user or customer will submit their support request through various channels, such as an email, web form, or dedicated support portal. These requests can range from technical issues to service inquiries. Second, the ticket is automatically generated using an automation tool that is configured to monitor these incoming requests and automatically generate support tickets based on predefined criteria. For example, an email with specific keywords or a request submitted through a web form can trigger the creation of a support ticket. Third, the automation system will capture the essential information from the user submission, including the description of the issue, contact details, and any relevant metadata. This information is then associated with the newly created ticket. Fourth, the automation will categorize the tickets based on their content or source. For instance, a ticket related to a network issue can be categorized under network support, while a request for software installation falls under software support. Fifth, a priority will be assigned to the ticket based on the predefined rules and criteria you have set. For example, an urgent issue may be assigned a higher priority to ensure that it receives some immediate attention and faster response. Sixth, an automated notification can be sent to the relevant support team or technician. This notification includes all of the captured information so that the support team can begin to address the issue promptly. By automating ticket creation, organizations can ensure that all incoming support tickets are efficiently captured, categorized, and assigned for resolution. This reduces the risk of tickets being lost or overlooked and accelerates the response time to user needs. As a real-world example, here at Dion Training, we use a trouble ticket system to collect any questions submitted by our students. These tickets are automatically created anytime someone sends an email to support@diontraining.com. But in addition to creating tickets by email, we also have several automation and integrations that also create tickets in our systems for our student support team to answer. For example, if you post a question in the Q&A section of this course, we have an automation that runs every 4 hours to collect those Q&As, create a ticket for each one in our system, and then notify the proper student support agent to create an answer to your question. Then, our automation will take the answer from our troubleshooting ticket and send it back to the question and answer section of this section so you can review it. Another common support automation is one that involves ticket escalation. Ticket escalation is a critical aspect of support ticket management that ensures that complex or high priority issues are addressed promptly and by the appropriate personnel. Ticket escalation follows a basic 5-step process. First, organization will define its escalation criteria based on the nature of the issue, its urgency, and the service level agreement that it has in place. For instance, a critical system outage may require immediate escalation, but a question from a student as to what course they should roll in might be okay to wait a few hours before it gets a response. Second, we create the automation rules around the escalation. Here, our automation tools are configured with predefined rules that monitor ticket attributes, such as priority level, response times, or unresolved status. When a ticket meets the escalation criteria, the automation is automatically triggered. Third, we take our escalation actions. Once the trigger has been reached, the automation system performs predefined actions which may include notifying a supervisor, reassignment, or a change in priority. If a supervisor is notified, then an automated notification will be sent to a team supervisor or manager to alert them to the escalated ticket. With reassignment, the ticket may be automatically reassigned from lower-level technician to a higher-level expert capable of resolving a more complex issue. Also, a change in priority will allow the ticket's priority level to be elevated to ensure it receives immediate attention. Fourth, we have monitoring and tracking. Here, our automation will continue to monitor the escalated ticket's progress to ensure that it's being addressed according to the organization's escalation protocols. Fifth, we have resolution and closure. Once the issue is resolved, automation system can trigger the ticket's closure and notify the user or customer of the resolution. Automating ticket escalation not only ensures that critical issues are handled properly, but maintain transparency and accountability throughout the support process. It also helps to minimize delays in addressing urgent matters and helps organizations meet their service level agreements. For example, here at Dion Training, we have automations in place that will route tickets to the proper instructor if our student support analyst cannot answer the question on their own. Additionally, we have automations in place that escalate the tickets after 24 or 48 hours if they have not already been answered, based on our internal service level agreement targets that we have set for various types of requests and tickets. So remember, automating support ticket management through ticket creation and escalation brings numerous advantages to organizations, such as increased efficiency, consistency, and customer satisfaction, while optimizing resource allocation and providing valuable insights for process refinement. By embracing automation and support ticket management, organizations can streamline their support operations, address issues more effectively, and ultimately deliver better service to their users or customers. In this lesson, we will cover automating the onboarding process in your organization. When we talk about automation, we refer to the use of technology to execute repetitive tasks without continuous human intervention in order to increase overall efficiency and reduce the chances of human errors occurring. By automating your onboarding process, you can directly impact your organization's overall productivity, employee satisfaction, and retention rates. This helps ensure that your new hires are quickly and efficiently integrated into their roles in your organization's culture. By automating your onboarding process, you can utilize a systematic approach to this process that can eliminate any tedious manual tasks, reduce the likelihood of errors, and provide your new employees with structured, consistent experience. This allows your organization to quickly activate your new team members' potential so that they can contribute meaningfully in their new position within your organization sooner. Automating the onboarding process is crucial for businesses to scale effectively and ensure a consistent experience while also reducing the administrative burden on your human resource and information technology departments. Using automation can enhance our support ticket management process as well by streamlining the onboarding process to make it more efficient and error-free. There are many different areas that can be automated during the onboarding process, including creating documentation records for the new employee, scheduling their training, provisioning them equipment, managing their access rights, distributing various checklists that the new employee must complete, and completing feedback throughout the process. But since we are cybersecurity professionals, we're really just going to focus on the use of automation to conduct user and resource provisioning. First, let's talk about user provisioning. User provisioning involves the creation and management of user accounts and access rights to internal systems. Automating user provisioning is an essential aspect of the onboarding process since it ensures that new employees have the necessary access to systems, applications, and other resources required for their role as soon as they are brought on board. To conduct user provisioning, our automation process must collect information, create the user's account, assign the account the correct roles and access, send out the proper notifications and confirmations, and then conduct continuous synchronization and updates. First, the new employee will provide us with the necessary information like their personal details, role, the department through an online form, or they can enter them directly in your organization's human resource portal or system. Then, based on the collected information, the automation will work in the background to create user accounts in various systems such as email, work management platforms, internal communication tools, and other parts of your networks. Next, the system will assign the appropriate roles and access levels for the user's accounts automatically depending on the new employee's assigned department and position to ensure that they have the specific tools and data needed to perform their job. Once accounts are established and access is granted, automated notifications are sent to new employees, their managers, or the information technology department for their awareness, as well as to confirm that the account was properly created. Finally, the automation system is also used to keep the user's information synchronized across various platforms. When an update occurs, such as an employee getting promoted or moving to a different department, the system will automatically reflect these changes in their related accounts and access permissions. Now that we have covered the concept of user provisioning, let's move on to the coverage of automating resource provision. Resource provisioning automation ensures the timely and appropriate allocation of physical and digital resources such as workstations, software licenses, and communication tools. Resource provisioning is about allocating the necessary tools and resources that new employees need to perform their jobs. Resource provisioning occurs by completing a basic 5-step process that includes requirements analysis, resource allocation, configuration and customization, verification and auditing, and gathering feedback. First, the system must analyze the submitted role and department information to determine the specific resources that should be assigned to the new employee. Then, based on predefined rules, automation system either initiates procurement workflows for resources not in inventory or allocates available resources. This might include setting up a workstation, providing a company-issued smartphone, or granting a license to allow specific software to be utilized. Next, the resources are then configured according to the specific needs of the employee's role. For example, a graphic designer's workstation might be equipped with specialized photo editing or vector design software, while a salesperson might receive access to your organization's customer relationship management systems instead. Once the configuration and customizations are completed, you must use a verification process to ensure that the automation was successful in granting the new employee all of the resources that they would need. Once verification is complete, you should then also ensure that auditing is occurring to keep track of the resources that were allocated, which is a critical process to ensure your inventory management remains up to date and that your organization maintains its compliance posture. Finally, the new employee and their manager will receive some automated prompt to confirm that the resources meet their needs or to report any issues or additional requirements that may still need to be fulfilled. For example, here at Dion Training, whenever you purchase a product at DionTraining.com, it will begin our user provisioning and resource allocation automation. If you purchase a course or an exam voucher from us, our system will first check if you already have a user account with us. If you don't, the user provisioning process will begin and a brand new student account will be created for you. Once the account is created, it will then start our resource provisioning process to grant your new user account the proper access rights to the particular course or exam voucher that you have purchased. When the automations are complete, you are then sent an email notifying you of your new account and a link for you to log into that account. This is a very basic onboarding process that is completely automated to onboard new students into our courses. Similarly, we have an onboarding process for our internal employees as well. Here at Dion Training, when a new employee is hired, we use automated resource provisioning processes to provide the new hire with access to our learning management system, our content creation tools, and our internal communication platforms as soon as they join our team. So remember, automating onboarding through user provisioning and resource provisioning offers us many benefits to our organizations, including speeding up the onboarding process, reducing errors, ensuring compliance, and saving time and resources. By implementing automations for these processes, your organization can ensure a smooth, consistent, and efficient onboarding experience that enables new employees to contribute to the organization's success more quickly. This strategic approach of automating the onboarding process not only optimizes the use of resources, but also enhances the new employee's journey during their first few days of employment with your organization. In this lesson, we will discuss ways that you can begin automating security in your organization. In today's digital landscape, security management is a cornerstone of business operations that can bring efficiency, consistency, and enhanced protection through the automation of cybersecurity in your organization. Security automation involves using technology to perform repetitive security tasks that are crucial for organization's protection, but often time-consuming or prone to human error. This approach ensures that defenses are consistently maintained and updated, and security threats are responded to swiftly. Automating security involves the use of configurations of guardrails, security groups, service access management, and permissions. First, we have implementing guardrails. Guardrails are automated safety controls that companies put in place to protect against insecure infrastructure configurations. These guardrails are used to ensure that the organization's security protocols are being fully adhered to. Initially, guardrails are configured according to the company's security standards. They are designed to be automatically enforced security policies to prevent any deviations that could introduce potential vulnerabilities. Guardrails also can be configured to continuously monitor the infrastructure by checking your configuration and network traffic against the established guardrails. When a potential security violation is detected, the system will generate an alert and take predefined corrective actions without waiting for human intervention. These actions can involve things like revoking a user's permissions, reconfiguring an affected component, or isolating a potential infected workstation from the network. Second, we have the management of security groups. Security groups act as a virtual firewall for your cloud-based server instances and their associated resources. These security groups offer the ability to specify which incoming and outgoing network traffic is allowed to or from the given cloud-based server. Automation can be used to assign instances to appropriate security groups with predefined traffic rules based on factors such as the cloud-based server's function, location, or associated project. Over time, threats evolve, and our systems can be configured to dynamically adjust their security group configurations to respond to new vulnerabilities or attack strategies. Our automated systems can also help us analyze traffic to and from our instances to ensure that they meet the criteria that has been established by our security group settings to prevent any unauthorized access attempts from occurring. Third, we have enabling and disabling of services and access. Another crucial area to consider, automating security, is the automation of service access management to prevent unnecessary exposure to risk and to maintain operational efficiency. Automation tools can be used to regularly review who has access to what so that we can ensure that our employees only have access necessary for their current role. Service access management can be improved to have near-instant reaction times by implementing automations that can monitor for any unusual activity. If a system detects unusual activity, it can automatically restrict or disable access to services until a human analyst can fully investigate the unusual activity and determine if it is suspicious, malicious, or just benign in nature. Another use of service access management automation is to enable or disable a given instance or service based on predefined schedule if the service is not continuously needed. This helps to reduce the window of opportunity for a potential cyber attack since the service can only be attacked if it is running on a given machine. Fourth, we have the automations for managing permissions. Managing permissions is about ensuring that individuals have the appropriate level of access to a system based on their assigned role. This is often done by using role-based access controls known as RBAC. Automating role-based access controls help to assign and manage your system permissions consistently. Using this kind of automation, your system can grant rights based on a given role within your organization. Automatic provisioning and deprovisioning allows a system to update the user's permissions whenever a user joins, moves, or leaves an organization. By automating permission updates accordingly, we can ensure that there is no unauthorized access to our organization's sensitive information. You can also use automated routines to perform regular checks on permission settings to verify compliance with internal policies and external regulations, and also to make any necessary adjustments needed over time. So remember, security automations are not just about reducing the workload of your organization's security team, but it is really about achieving higher levels of precision and reactivity to your security management process to help strengthen your organization's defense against increasingly sophisticated cyber threat actors. To operate at the speed of cyber, our organizations must embrace automation to safeguard our assets, our data, and our operational continuity. In this lesson, we will discuss automating application development. Deploying innovative, robust, and secure applications quickly and consistently can be very challenging. But by automating our application development efforts, we can improve the efficiency, consistency, and the overall quality of our final software products being released and deployed. In the world of application development, automation really involves the use of technology to manage, test, and deploy new applications or features with minimal human intervention. In the days of legacy software development, every step of the software development testing, release, and deployment process was conducted by our software developers, who are, after all, humans. Now, relying on humans for every step can be a major hurdle that slows down our release and deployment process. For example, under the older waterfall development methodologies, it could often take 3 to 12 months to create a software application. Luckily, in our modern development environments, we can use automations to help us develop software in a more iterative style to rapidly create, test, release, and deploy our applications. Simply by moving to a more iterative or agile development style, we can see many features of the new software application being created and released within just a few weeks. But with the introduction of continuous integration and continuous deployment, we can see some features and software applications being created and released in the same day, and in some really high velocity organizations, sometimes multiple times per day. For example, the photo sharing site Flickr had automated so much of their integration and deployment processes that they were releasing software patches, new features, and new functionality up to 10 times per day at the peak of their software development efforts. So hopefully you can now see why we wanted to move from the waterfall development methodology to the agile or iterative method, and now to a continuous integration and continuous deployment methodology to really decrease the time it takes to create and release a usable function or feature to our end users. By using continuous integration and continuous deployment, also known as CI/CD, we can significantly improve the efficiency, consistency, and the overall quality of our software applications. So what is continuous integration? Continuous integration, or CI, is a practice in software development where all of your developers merge their code changes into a central repository multiple times per day. Each check-in is then verified by an automated build process to provide early notifications if there's a problem detected during the integration and build process. Using automation tools, we can easily manage the integration of code changes from multiple contributors into a single software project and provide us with some automatic notifications for any conflicts or errors. After integrating the code into the central repository, the system will automatically execute a series of tests on that code to help reduce the time and effort traditionally required by manual testing. This testing step is crucial for maintaining software quality when frequent updates and changes are being made by multiple developers across your organization. Immediately following the integration and testing stages, developers will often receive feedback on any issues that were detected so that they can quickly correct or modify their code in response to the feedback that they receive from the automated testing process. This constant communication loop helps to ensure the integrity and functionality of the final software application is maintained. Now that the software is being continuously integrated, it still needs to be prepared for release and deployment. When we talk about a few releases, we're talking about the process of finalizing and preparing new software or updates, verifying through continuous integration for delivery into a specific environment. This environment could be a staging environment or a production environment, and the release process marks the transition point where a particular piece of software is ready for users to access it. Now, a deployment, on the other hand, involves the automated, consistent, and reliable process of pushing out new releases or versions of that software into a target environment, like testing, staging, or production environment, so that it becomes operational and accessible to your end users. Now, I know this sounds like two very similar definitions, but there are key differences between them. When it comes to a release, it is making the software available to people who want to install and use it, whereas deployment involves actually installing the software into a new environment. Now, once the continuous integration is performed, we can then move into continuous delivery or continuous deployment. In the cybersecurity and software development world, we have two different types of CI/CD. One is continuous integration and continuous delivery, while the other is continuous integration and continuous deployment. Regardless of which one you choose to utilize in your organization, we always start with continuous integration, which we have already discussed in this lesson. Now, we need to move to either the continuous delivery or continuous deployment option. Let's start with the continuous delivery option first. Continuous delivery ensures that the code base is always in a deployable state after every change through the use of automated testing and building processes. However, it stops short of pushing changes to production automatically. Basically, I want you to think about continuous delivery as part of a release process and not as part of the deployment process. In continuous delivery, the full deployment process is automated only up to a certain stage, such as in the development, testing, or staging environments, but it will not deploy into your live production environment. With continuous delivery, deployment into your production environment is considered to be a manual step so that you can retain the control over when and how the changes are deployed into your live production environment. This means that the deployment of the production environment is a business decision that takes into account various factors like timing, market conditions, and stakeholder readiness. By using continuous delivery, your team has more flexibility to decide when to deploy new changes into the production environment while ensuring that they have a production-ready version of the software at all times. Now, this brings us to the concept of continuous deployment. Continuous deployment takes the process further by automatically deploying all code changes into a testing environment and then into a production environment after the build stage is completed. Every change that passes all stages of your production pipeline will be fully released to your customers with no human intervention to ensure that you can release updates and functions more frequently and reliably. Using automation helps to ensure that each deployment is executed in precisely the same manner by removing the human error from the process and also to provide us with faster deployment. In the event of a failure, there are automated rollback features in our continuous deployment processes that can revert our software or application back to the previous known state. Having this kind of rollback capability is really essential for maintaining service continuity and availability when relying on continuous deployment models. As you can probably guess, the use of continuous integration and continuous deployment in the development process requires a paradigm shift in the way developers and operational teams collaborate, since we are constantly deploying changes into the live production network. With continuous integration and continuous deployment, our developers must become more involved in the post-code process by taking responsibility for the deployment and functioning of their code instead of simply handing it off to the operational team to conduct the testing and deployment like they used to do in the older waterfall deployment methodology. Now, your operational teams will instead shift their focus from the task of managing deployment logistics to improving the process that enhances the streamlining and the flow of work from the development stage to the deployment stage. The use of continuous integration and continuous deployment also requires a shift towards increased communication and collaboration within your organization's various teams, which creates a culture of collective responsibility for a given project. By embracing the continuous integration and continuous delivery model, organizations will be able to more quickly adapt to changing market demands and allow them to work more efficiently towards their goals. For instance, here at Dion Training, we have implemented continuous integration and continuous deployment into our development processes so that we can merge our code from across our various software developers into a single code base hosted in GitHub. And then our code is automatically tested, built, and deployed into a testing and staging environment. At Dion Training, we have made the risk management decision to not implement continuous deployment, but instead, we rely on continuous delivery instead. This allows our Chief Technology Officer to work with our Chief Operations Officer to determine when is the right time to push any new features, functions, or changes into our live production environment so that it becomes accessible for our students to utilize. So remember, when it comes to automating your application deployment, you will usually do this by configuring the use of continuous integration and continuous delivery, or the use of continuous integration and continuous deployment. This not only optimizes the development process, but it also significantly lowers the risk of deployment failures, increases the frequency of releases, and ensures a new product is always ready to deploy. If your organization wants to stay relevant and competitive in a modern business environment that continuously demands faster, seamless, and more innovative applications, then it is important that you begin to automate your application development by using one of the CI/CD methodologies. In this lesson, we will discuss integrations and APIs. Integrations and application program interfaces, or APIs as they are commonly called, are the unsung heroes behind the seamless interconnectivity and enhanced capabilities of today's modern software applications and automation. When it comes to automation and orchestration, integrations and APIs are really the fundamental elements that drive efficiency, innovation, and scalability in modern systems. Before we dive into the specifics of each of these, let's take a moment to define both integration and an API. An integration refers to the process of combining different subsystems or components into one comprehensive system to ensure that they all function properly together. An API, or application programming interface, is a set of rules and protocols that are used for building and integrating application software. An API will allow your product or service to talk to another product or service in a controlled environment and using a specific data exchange format. Now, when we talk about API, it is a library of programming utilities that are used to enable software developers to access functions or features of another application programmatically. APIs are probably the number one thing that we use in our integrations to be able to communicate between different portions of a microservice or service-oriented architecture. By using an API, we can automate the administration, management, and monitoring of various services and cloud-based infrastructures, as well as a lot of other applications. Commonly, our APIs will use either REST or SOAP to communicate. REST, or the Representational State Transfer, is an architectural style that uses standard HTTP methods and status codes, uniform resource identifiers, and MIME types to achieve a simple way to interact in a stateless manner with a given web service. REST usually relies on using the JSON format when transferring data, which also makes it a very lightweight protocol that can be easily integrated with existing websites without needing to perform any kind of extensive modifications. SOAP, or Simple Object Access Protocol, is a protocol that defines a strict standard with a set structure for the message, usually in XML format, that includes a header and a body that is used to transfer data between two different services. SOAP is known for being more robust than REST by having some additional security features and its ability to provide transaction compliance. This makes it a great choice for any enterprise-level web services where complex transactions and regulatory compliance are essential. While REST is generally more straightforward and adaptable to utilize, SOAP does provide us with a higher level of security and transactional integrity that caters to some different use cases and requirements. Now, when we talk about APIs, we think about these from a perspective of integration. APIs allow for integration between lots of different services, especially cloud-based services. Most cloud-based service providers also allow us to do provisioning, configuration, deprovisioning, and lots of other things to the services by using these APIs. APIs will also allow us to have direct integration of different third-party applications into our own web applications. By using APIs, we can integrate services together and make function calls to those services instead of having to build an entire service ourselves. With the API, we can just call on someone else's function and let their service do the work for us and return the results back to us. This is the whole idea of creating a microservice or service-oriented architecture instead of building a monolithic web application. Now, let me give you a great example of how we use integrations and APIs in our business here at Dion Training. To conduct our student support functions, we use a centralized service management system called Freshdesk. Freshdesk is a commercial software as a service product that we pay for every month, and we use this to be able to get all of our trouble tickets or questions submitted by our students, and then we can track those things to make sure that you're getting the answers you requested. So the way we have it configured is that if you email support@diontraining.com, it will get sent to our Freshdesk system so that our team can look at those emails, which we call tickets, and then answer the questions that you sent us. You can think about this as like a shared inbox, but since it's actually a ticketing system, we won't lose track of any requests we receive from our students so that we can make sure everyone's questions are being answered promptly. Now, we also provide some of our courses on Udemy, and the Udemy students also want to be able to ask us questions about those courses. But most Udemy students don't email us directly, and instead, they simply post their questions inside the question and answer section of their website. Unfortunately, Udemy Q&A system was never designed to support instructors like Dion Training that have over 1 million Udemy students, so it is really easy for student questions to get missed in the QA section. To overcome this limitation, we would need to be able to rewrite the Udemy website to add the ticketing system capability to our instructor backend of the Udemy system. Since Dion Training doesn't own Udemy, and we don't have access or rights to modify their website's codebase, we cannot add a ticketing system to the Udemy instructor backend. So, how can I get all of those Q&A posts loaded into my Freshdesk ticketing system so that we can track and answer all of our students without missing any of those questions? Well, if you guessed that we should use an API, you are correct. Udemy has created an API that allows anyone to programmatically read and respond to any Q&A post. So our development team at Dion Training spent about a week creating a small integration to query the Udemy API. And anytime there's a new Q&A posted, we read it from the Udemy API and then create a new ticket in Freshdesk using the Freshdesk API. Now, all of our Udemy Q&As will show up as trouble tickets in our system, just as if the student emailed us at support@diontraining.com. Now, when our team answers a question, instead of sending the response by email, since we don't know the Udemy student's email address, our system runs another automation that will read the response from our Freshdesk ticket using their API, and then post it as an answer to the Udemy Q&A using the Udemy API. This is the type of integration that you can do using API, and in this case, the entire integration program is less than 150 lines of Python code running in a serverless AWS Lambda environment. The entire thing took us about 1 to 2 weeks to create, test, and deploy, and it only costs us about $1 per month to run this code every 4 hours to get the new Q&As, create the trouble tickets, and post the responses back to the Q&A section once our team answers them. This integration allows our team to work more efficiently since they can answer all student questions in one place inside of Freshdesk, and then the answers are sent back to the student to their preferred support channel, either email or the Q&A section, depending on where they submitted their question initially. For the student, they will never know anything is happening in the background with this integration, but instead, it looks as if I or Jason logged directly into Udemy and responded to the Q&A that you posted. But for our team, it is easier for us to manage and allows us to help more students quickly. Another example of using an API integration is one that we built that allows our students to access our hands-on cloud-based labs inside of any of our courses that you may have purchased on diontraining.com. So if you take a course at diontraining.com, you will see video lessons, quizzes, our downloadable study guides, and our practice exam, all of which we created ourselves. But when you get to the lab-based section, you will simply click on the link that says Launch the Lab. The lab environment will be returned to you inside of our learning management system using this backend integration. When it comes to the labs, we don't build those ourselves, but instead we rely on a third-party partner that we work with, and we use them to integrate their labs into your course experience. And we want it to be integrated in a way so that you don't even realize that it was a third-party provider tool. In fact, in the old days, we used to not have this integration, and instead our students had to log into the lab provider with a different username and password, and then select the lab that they needed to take at a specific time. By using this API integration, we remove the need for you having to use another username and password, and the need to go to a different website, and the need for you to figure out which lab for the 20 or 30 that are included in the course should be performed at that specific time. But with our integration, the whole experience is optimized. So if you're taking a course at diontraining.com, you will have access to that full lab environment as you're going through the course. You'll watch a video and eventually get to the one that says, now here's the lab. In this lab, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. Click this link to start the lab. And that link actually looks something like you would see here on the screen. It says something like diontraining.com, action equals run, instance, and ID equals, and the count and the access key and all those things. These are the parameters that we are passing to the API of our lab provider. This allows our lab partner to know which of our students is taking the lab based on their student ID, which lesson they are at in the course, which lab needs to be ran, and the authorization token. We send all of these details to our lab provider using their API, and in return, they provide us with the lab information and the lab launch link that will be displayed on your screen. This is actually a magic link that will let you open the lab within the next 3 minutes. Once you click on that link, it will load the lab inside of our learning management system for you. You may have also noticed that the URL has an authorization token included in it as well. This is because the cloud provider needs to be able to know who they're servicing because we have hundreds of thousands of students. And by knowing which student you are, they can give you the right services that we already pay for on your behalf so that you're not charged anything additional to access these labs. Now that we understand a little bit more about application programming interfaces and integrations, you may be wondering, how can you test if a given API is working properly in your existing automation? One of my favorite tools to interact with the API is the curl tool. Curl comes installed by default in Linux and macOS systems, but you can also install it yourself on your Windows system. Curl is a tool used to transfer data to and from a server using one of the supported protocols, including HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, FTPS, SCP, SFTP, TFTP, DICT, Telnet, LDAP, or File. Now, all of these protocols can be used with curl, and the one you will use to test API is usually going to be HTTP or HTTPS, depending on if you're testing an API that is using an insecure connection or a secure connection. So how do you use curl? As a cybersecurity professional, I can use curl to test an API by using the basic command curl space dash dash data space, the argument that you want to pass, and then the URL of the API. So, for example, if I wanted to test the http bin.org API, I can enter something like curl dash data double quote first name equals boolean at last name equals world double quote https colon // http bin.org/host. In this case, I'm sending the first name equals boolean and the last name equals world, and then I'm sending this to https colon // http bin.org/host. When I'm sending that information, what will I receive back from the API? Well, for the HTTP bin API, we will receive something in a JSON format that has data that includes a list of arguments and fields that came back from that particular API. This allows you to send the data over the API and see what comes back as a response, which is very helpful if you're working as a software developer or cybersecurity software engineer as part of a penetration test. So remember, integrations and APIs are used to seamlessly create interconnections between different services to enhance their default capabilities. Integration refers to the process of combining different subsystems or components into one comprehensive system to ensure that they function properly together. An API, or application programming interface, is a set of rules and protocols that are used for building and integrating application software. An API will allow your product or service to talk to another product or service in a controlled environment and using a specific data exchange format. When we are using automation or orchestration, we rely heavily on the APIs to create an interconnection between our different microservices or services provided by our third-party partners.